Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Hey there.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. Hey, everyone. So I'm just going to put it out there that I have a meeting at 1 o'clock.
Thanks,
Good.
Maureen. I think if we can try to keep it to as close to the hour scheduled as possible, I think that is everyone's preference. Thank you for naming that. Nate?
Off yet?
We got everybody. I don't think everybody's here yet, but we do have enough to start the meeting. So at this point, it's 12:02. I'll open the branding committee meeting. Welcome, everybody. I'll call a roll call at this time.
Ed Knight here.
Lisa Ducharme here.
Kate Nato here.
Maureen McGarren Hall here.
Molly Robinson here.
Chris Martin here.
And Nate Shattuck here. Okay, so we'll get started. I believe we have a set of minutes to approve from the last meeting. Is that right, Chris? Or no? No meetings, no minutes?
No, I haven't got those in.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll pass on. All right, so we need to move on to the review of the logo at this time. After the vote and commentary and everything like that, I'm going to open that discussion now.
Chris, can you
Okay.
share the final tallies with us?
Yeah, so I sent that to everybody. I'm trying to log in right now, but we had 295 results come through the website portion of it. I don't know who was ultimately in charge of picking up the paper ballots, and if we have done that yet, I really hope we have.
That's me, Chris, in charge of the picking up the paper ballots. I have not picked them up yet. I had to work my other job this morning and could not be in town to pick them up when the offices opened. I have sent an email to the places where they were put out. And I'm waiting to hear back, but I don't think there's enough that's going to change the way the votes came through. But we will certainly have those before tonight to add in.
Okay. So I could share with everybody then the results that came through this site. Let me share, let's see, screen 2. Okay, so everybody should see this is the final results. We have all the submissions listed here. If we ever need to go through and check anything. We have an overwhelming 240 responses out of the 295, 81.4% for option A, 18.6% with 55 responses for option B. These just show that 100% of the people answered first name and 100% answered last name. And then this is where we ask people if they live in Belchertown, if they work in Belchertown, if they own a business in Belchertown. And this was a multi-select, so some people could say that they work in Belchertown, that they own a business in Belchertown, and they live in Belchertown. So there is plenty of overlaps between these, but overwhelmingly 269 people, 91% of the people that voted are residents of Belchertown. And I have to say that nearly 300 people voting, well, that's, ultimately a far cry from the 15,000 people that we have in town. Since being in local government, this is the largest response that I've seen come through for anything other than town elections. I actually think that the last town meeting we held had 178 people show up to it. So this is more than a town meeting. Probably not this year's town meeting, but last year's. So it was. I'm happy with the results. We can always do better than this, but this is, I think, these are the people that really respond to things in town.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Chris and Kate, for really getting the word out about this vote. Like, that's huge. That's a huge number. So congratulations. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for sharing this with your networks. I know everyone was a part of it, but I know Kate was doing a lot of behind the scenes work of getting flyers out, and just want to acknowledge that she's only part-time and this is a huge, huge turnout. So congratulations.
Kate, do you have the paper ballots? Did I hear that?
I think you heard they weren't picked up yet.
They weren't picked up yet. I have to pick them up. I understand there was like 6 from the library, and maybe a couple others that came through. But I had to work my other job this morning, and when I get in town, I'll be gathering those together.
Okay, so we only had 6 or 10 or 12 responses via paper for our entire non-electronic contingent in town.
Correct.
That doesn't seem like very much to me. As much as we can celebrate the 295 votes that we had electronically, it doesn't fully represent the folks that couldn't make it or wanted to make it. At least I don't feel that way.
Well, to be honest, based on the people who showed up at the town hall and the 2 days, I was excited when I saw the email for 295 and would have been shocked if we even had 2 paper ballots, because people at the town hall, they were not taking those paper ballots at all. And I was like, I expected them to take the paper ballot because it's easier than taking the time to scan, because you could have just whipped out the answers right then and there. But they didn't. In fact, I can tell you the entire time I was there, not a single person picked up the paper. And I tried to actually physically hand it to them.
Okay.
I think I had to enter maybe 4 paper survey submissions from that first go around.
Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yep.
But I will say that the 2 emails that we got, one clearly showed that the branding message has not gotten out. But the other one from Brian Gibbons, I love what they did. I absolutely love the logo they did. I think it really enhanced it. Nate, that was the one you sent us.
Okay.
Or was that our logo that they liked? It looked like they did something to it.
I didn't get that out of the email. There was no changes to it.
Oh, that's just the one they liked?
Or they were commenting on bits and pieces and trying to.
Oh, I thought they did a tweet.
They took it apart piece by piece, basically.
Yeah.
No, it looks like they showed examples of what we had, but they didn't change it in any way.
Oh, okay, good. Because that was my favorite logo. I thought maybe they moved something.
They were making suggestions, for that. So, okay. Well, hearing the results, obviously there was overwhelming response for option A. So what's the next step at this time?
So I think the goal of this meeting is for the committee to make a recommendation to the select board, confirm who all besides Katie and I is going to be there tonight to present that recommendation. as Katie mentioned, and as I mentioned by email, if there are any minor tweaks that this committee would like to make to option A, I think we have a little bit of time to do that. We have a clear mandate on the concept, but if there are suggestions on kerning or coloration or like little details that can be addressed through graphic design and not through like a stylistic overhaul per se, I think there's some time to discuss that. Maureen, were you gonna?
You can tell I am. So just a little feedback from the information that we've received from the public is more along the lines of the side where the it's representing the Belchertown Common. Is there a way to possibly put a small, the gazebo picture in there and balance it with the barn so the town feels more representation of the common? I think that that was a concern that I had read. And what would, is that an option at this point? I know, we've stressed the clock tower and everybody is shooting it down. Is there an option to have a little bit more representation of the town common being balanced on, perhaps a little bit before the tree? Or what is the thought process behind that? Or is this just as it is? We're not taking any feedback at this point. Can that be explained?
I'll go ahead and add, I think that's possible if everyone would be okay with that. You all kind of saw that in the previous iteration, and the reason we took it out was people weren't really jazzed about the gazebo. Or at
Well, it's
least
not that we weren't jazzed, it's that it was the only representation
Yes.
available of the town. So
But
bringing,
yeah, it's already made, so it's easy
Yeah.
to kind of put back in there if that's something of
and
interest.
kind of balance it with the tree. I mean, you're an artist, so kind of balance it in.
Right.
And then I want Katie, you're very talented, and I know how hard this has been. In regards to like people considering one of the feedback on the barn and the tractor was kind of clip art, right? Which I don't feel it is. But if you feel that there's a better representation of an actual barn that could per se be in that place and kind of balancing those tones, I would like to hear from the committee, even though I'm not the one running the meeting, what their thoughts are in regards to, kind of adding a more realistic balance. Like the barn is great, but as well, do they feel the tractor's not as realistic? And what here can be kind of, put in, like maybe again, just adding that little gazebo by the tree, and then per se, what is it that you feel is too again, we're going off of responses from, a person in the town in regards to not being more realistic. So I just want to hear some feedback of other people here.
So I'm gonna jump in because when I read that same feedback, it was clear that it was more a branding issue. It wasn't the logo issue. They don't understand the
Okay.
logo. They don't
Okay.
understand the branding based on what I read. And I responded to Nicole. Um, you have no choice in something like this than to use a clip art kind of graphic because of the way this is. If you took something a little bit more realistic, that would be problematic for the logo.
Okay.
Because
That's
of
why I
the,
wanted some
because
feedback.
Well, and
yeah,
I'll go ahead and add on, Lisa. I totally get what you're saying. I will also add they're not clip art. I drew them myself
I
just in
bet you
case.
did. Yeah,
But
because you're
they're
great.
pretty typical, right? And that's kind of on purpose so that you look at it and you see what it is.
Yeah.
Danielle and I spoke about this briefly, and we had tried like the Cold Spring playing with the part of that building that is unique, and then it was too unique. I had previously, but then with the new discussion, looked at Lamson Brook Farm, and my worry if we tried to represent that one is like the main door just looks like a door. It doesn't even look like a barn door, you know? So I'm not saying we can't play with it, but I feel like Lambton would be kind of the second best to Cold Spring if we were to pick one. Correct me if I'm
I
wrong.
think honestly, when the town has spoken, and although we have far more than 295 people, but like Chris said, that's a great result to get back in. But just the thought of actually taking the gazebo and adding that and balancing it out. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I like that idea. I thought it was perfect because it can be small enough because the trees are there to still be able to stand out.
Chris,
I
Nate,
do have some comments
Yeah.
if there's a chance.
Go for
Um,
it.
so I'm wondering how this logo looks when it's on the background of something. Like I didn't see that in our final examples, because in this previous one, we had the white outlines around the trees and everything else, and I'm not sure if those lines are still there in our current version. Like I know there's an outline around one of the trees in the current version,
Mm.
but
And
not around the other tree. And then I was like wondering like if there was an outline around the barn as well too, because I feel like if we've outlined part of the pieces of art, we should be outlining all of them to balance it better. And then I was starting to wonder, like, because the tractor is so small and the weather vane so small, like, are they going to get lost when you start outlining the outside of those?
I can add two
this is
things to that.
valid.
I agree with you completely. That's been my worry about the tractor and weather vane is as they get tiny, they're just blips, unfortunately. And then yes, with the with all the revisions, it's not refined exactly with all those outlines, but
Sure.
will you go,
And
Danielle,
I'll
up?
go a step farther too, and I want everybody's feedback as well in regards to the second tree, maybe having a pop of orange as well. I know we had discussed that in the last meeting, and that might help the gazebo stand out more. I just want to have, other people kind of touch on that.
I think if we were to add the gazebo to that side, then having the green around it would be better than to have. If it's sorry, I might be confused that you're thinking of changing one of the trees to orange. I know that was an idea that we had last time. Um, uh, I mean, like
Obviously
adding,
not the pine tree.
right? Yeah.
And I had tried that too, because I know we discussed it, and it almost seemed too balanced.
Okay.
Just kind of two pieces of orange, exactly the same. But potentially if the gazebo is orange, kind of tucked in between the trees, I think that would be a little bit better balance
I
wise.
agree.
But the
Yeah, I
gazebo
think
is white. Are you saying, you're saying change oh, I see what you're saying. You're not
is there any way to
making
like
the gazebo
quickly
orange.
quickly see that, Katie, to be able to
Yeah,
like?
let me
I know we
Yeah,
don't want to waste a ton of time like looking at like specific design things, but like we're only 20 minutes in, so I think it would help us to see like a visualization of what it would look like with the gazebo maybe like tucked behind the pine, but in front of the other tree, or just somewhere in there.
And
Like
is
I'm
it
not entirely
possible?
opposed to it.
And is it possible to see it without the tractor and the weather vane? Because I am really concerned about losing those details as we get smaller.
Yeah, I'm just zooming out so people can see the.
Yep, I'm pulling up my stuff too now.
Thank you so much, Katie. I know we've been a ball of fun.
Yeah, it has been, I've learned a lot.
We've tried, and I think that it really the overall once the gazebo's in and it is gonna be a great representation.
Can I share my screen, Danielle?
Yep.
Okay.
And Katie, you also had the version that had the more realistic quote unquote barn. I didn't know. I know that we looked at a bunch of those over the weekend as well.
Yeah, this is kind of what Danielle and I were playing with over the weekend here. And then, yeah, this was what we ended up showing. So let me,
yeah. I'll just chime in while we're doing this. I'm open to a gazebo. I think that'd be great. I'm curious, like we're meeting right now to decide what we're gonna recommend. If we say, oh yeah, go ahead and add a gazebo, are we gonna see it again before we present it? Or are we setting ourselves up to like be surprised later? I just wanna get a sense of how we're
I think that's why I want to see this like
yeah.
here and like laid out so that we got a very good idea of like what we're looking at later.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
We need to have the final version to agree on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think this committee, if we're going to make some changes with adding more things in, might need to agree on what that looks like. But I think Katie's going to need some time to really refine and add in the lines that we're talking about. And so
Like really small the small
And
detail.
we don't have time.
Oh, my
I
other,
mean, not perfect, but
okay.
you know, I would.
Actually, tucking away the bottom, like
I
that's
like
one of
the
my things. I
bottom
don't like the
dog.
square bottom, but like having it hidden,
I
that's not
love
too
that.
bad.
Something like that.
And then you might mess with the scale of the oak tree a tiny bit. So we can
There is an evergreen tree right next to the gazebo.
I like this.
I like that a lot. I think that that's so.
I think it looks better tucked in.
I think I
Yeah.
think the balance
better
is
tucked in.
incredible.
And then if the barn on the right on the left was down a little lower,
Mhm.
and it was the height of the weather vane was like
That's great.
was more in line with the top of the trees.
You cut off the door too much.
Like just from a height standpoint. I don't know. Yeah, maybe or at least
No, I would go up.
Yeah, we need to go up a little higher with that.
Yeah.
Well, if we take the weather vane off the top, we can definitely go higher and keep like the same top plane.
I like the weather vane though. That's the most realistic part of the barn.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but if we look at like embroidering this, that's not going to show at all.
Mhm.
And the
That looks
tractor is
incredible.
probably going to turn out
Can the
looking
hill be
like
smaller?
a bunch of circles.
Can the hill be lower?
I feel like you guys are here in my office with me. Okay.
Yeah, but one thing, and I realize that
That looks
some things are
incredible.
not gonna some things are not gonna show when you embroider them, but the reality is that's still okay. I will tell you probably about 80% of the logos I see, when you look at them embroidered, a lot of the things don't show up, but you got the semblance of it so people know that it matches.
I think
Because
that
you
looks
get the appearance.
incredible.
I just want to call attention when you drop the field on the left a little bit, you do lose a little bit of the crop lines.
Yeah, yeah.
Of the
We still get
quabbin.
agriculture
Yeah, but I mean
from
that's
the
okay, I
farm,
think.
but
the quabbin would have to become less.
Yeah, that's okay. I
Even
mean,
take this out, this other hill,
hmm.
you know.
Mm. I like the other hill in. Or down a little. Maybe go back up. Yeah.
Yeah, the other hill kind of encapsulates the Quabbin look to it. So
Maybe something like this. I know it's ugly right here, but
I mean, are you going to work on that or should we bring that hill back up?
I mean the hill was originally
That's good.
there.
Yeah, I kind of like it better to the left.
I
Yeah.
would connect them to simplify it personally.
So you're saying though that you will connect the blue water?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's not
That's
gonna.
what I was waiting to
But
say. Okay.
I would have to sit here and play with every little thing, so I'm
It
No.
won't,
wasting your time doing
Like
that.
the
we're not
tractor's
setting ourselves up for the tractor to be driving into the water, are we?
No, hopefully
We
not.
have to basically
that was
move.
Molly, that was my concern, was that having the hill higher makes it like me. I was worried that the tractor would be driving into the water too.
Right. We can't have that.
But
So
I
when I-
actually think like having that gazebo added in and that's giving the full representation of the Quabbin. We still have our agriculture. We still have the Quabbin, which you're going to work on getting the blue over to the hill.
Mhm.
And what is the feedback from the remainder?
I mean, just in 10 minutes, it's changed the entire look of the thing.
Right. I personally almost feel like that left hill should go back up. And that's just, but again, I'm not seeing the water connected. So
Here, I'll go back to.
yeah,
how-
that's the balance that I honestly think.
yeah, I like that.
I think it should be that way too. You don't, asymmetry is purposeful. You don't want everything to be too.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely has my vote.
That looks great.
Love it.
Yeah.
For tonight, are we bringing just this logo or are we bringing the full brand identity, including that little like the symbol version of this and alternate layouts?
So I want to throw in some really quick feedback that I got from Steve Williams about tonight's meeting. that there are, and anybody from the select board that's on here could correct me if things have changed, because I know that meeting plans change constantly. There are like three major things that the board needs to vote on tonight, this being one of them. And my understanding is that there's a solid chance the meeting is only going to go from like 7:15 to 8 o'clock, and it has to end at that point because the votes are happening and two of the select board members, their term expires.
So I think that's changed, Chris.
And has it changed? Because my understanding is that we had like 45 minutes to get through everything.
The way that it works is that until the new select board members are sworn in, the existing ones remain in their seat. But we are still going to try to wrap it up for 8 o'clock because we all want to be down at the gymnasium when the votes come in.
Okay, so it is that like 45 minutes then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is gonna be quick. So they're I already relayed this to Danielle and Katie, but Steve Williams, the town manager, he was like, yeah, we're not gonna have a ton of time for a huge presentation and like deliberation on like a whole bunch of stuff. He's like, we still want to deliberate, we still want to give more time on the select board side to ask questions and do that. So presentation wise, we should try to keep it somewhat brief and to the point.
I have to tell you, sorry, Danielle, I have to tell you that with this improvement that was just made, I absolutely love it. I think it's perfect. And I think this will be a smooth and fast presentation.
I think it's incredible.
Yep.
That little gazebo just never knew what it wanted to do. Is it in? Is it out?
We tuck that gazebo in a little bit behind that.
Stop it.
I'll make it look smoother,
I think as long as folks trust Katie to just do some refining, balancing, any kind of texture stuff, outlining stuff that is going to be aligned with like the most balance and the best accessibility practices, like she can spend a little bit of time on this as long as we agree that these are the core elements. This is generally where things go.
Yeah. And I agree with Katie on the outlining of the actual full logo, because when it is placed on something, you want it to pop.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to jump back to kind of what I brought up earlier, but then Molly also noted, and I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but with this brand, as we all know, my computer is going very slow.
It's amazing to see where we've come from.
Yeah, there's lots of work behind the scenes.
I know. I get it. And
you can see on the left corner there's some hay bales that
we tried.
The hay bales is like, that's not it.
I want a Ferris wheel right in the middle.
Yeah. So this was like the initial one I had shown back prior as our more like icon use before we had talked about adding the barn. So I would lean towards, since this is not the primary logo, we probably don't have to have this ready to go tonight. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, we've still got a lot of the parts that, it's similar. So I just want to open that up because you will need
I don't think it should be different. I feel like that's different, like an old version. And it is, but at the end of the day, the round logo, it should be a snapshot of the logo that we come up with.
So this group also had not decided on whether or not this would be a B. There's either the options for like the shorthand icon of the logo.
Oh yeah, we didn't. Right, we haven't talked about
to
that.
Either have
I don't know that we're prepared to do that today.
which is why I think like my read of this, and like maybe Nicole and I don't know if Jen is here can weigh in as well, but I think when we're approving the logo, the logo is the thing that needs to be voted on, and then there are going to be different variations of this logo. There's going to be a version of this that's just black and white. There's going to be a version of this that has like Massachusetts on the bottom, that does not have Massachusetts on the bottom. It's all part of the larger brand kit. I don't think that we're voting on the whole brand kit. And I think that once we have
I
the
think we
logo.
need to clarify that because,
Okay.
I don't want to go walking away from here going thinking that, oh, shoot, we didn't talk about that,
So our intention tonight is to just vote on the main logo. And I know Maud is on the call. Is that enough for you, Maud, to move forward with wayfinding if we just have the main logo voted on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I shared the note from Whitney. So thank you for asking that question last week. I think we shared a sense of it, but just to get really specifically into what Stantec's process is, that yes, they do incorporate logo. They include the colors and the fonts. And then they reference as well very heavily the kind of design concept, the vibe of it when they export. So yes, absolutely. I think this is a really great place for us to be right now, for Stantec to be able to stay on track.
And then
Okay.
it gives this committee a bit more time to decide on, do we want a bee? Do we want a pictorial icon? Do we want both for different uses? It gives Katie a little bit more time to refine based on these changes, what the pictorial icon will be, build out the full brand kit, and also refocus our attention to the seal, because those.
Okay.
That's still a thing.
Can I ask a question about the colors? So that the Belchertown itself, it's not black, it's not green, it's kind of a different. Are those colors set? Because I think that's important for what Mod needs too, right? And so, do we all agree that the colors are what we all want on this logo?
I think the colors are amazing.
I've been happy with them.
I mean, I like it, but I just want to make sure that there's a voice here for everyone. And I know
that we talked about it last time, Nate. We had actually talked about the colors briefly, and everybody seemed good with them.
Oh, we talked about so much the last time that it was a blur.
Well, I hate to do this again, being, we're playing around with art, but since the gazebo's white, I hate to do that. But could you quickly make the gazebo white and the tree orange just to give us a thought? I know, I'm horrible. I know.
No, it just looks.
It might, we don't know. It's worth playing around with. And you can
That's
go
a good
right
thought.
back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is the orange the right orange, that we have in there is, because we do, that's kind of an.
No, it's all right. Go back to the way it was. It was worth just,
I think Katie pulled these specific colors from the comment and from the library. So in that original research document, I think that it was like, that's exactly where they came from.
Okay. I know what I'm just thinking, the school colors are black and orange. So, if this is going to be used in the schools too, well, there'll be renditions that have everything orange.
Yeah, but the thing is we're not representing the school.
Yeah, I know.
We're representing the town.
All right. That's fine.
Nate, I'll add too, because that's a good point. Kate and I have been discussing this, but with those like sub-department logos that you briefly saw when I was doing like the Parks and Rec. I know we're not decided on that icon, but I assume we'll hand something to the school in some format. So maybe it's this logo and then it says school district or whatever on the bottom, and we make it black and orange. There's possibility, I think, for those sub logos.
Okay. All right.
Are we going to have to go back to the select board for additional voting, or is this all it takes and then the rest of it with the stamp and everything else is up to us?
So my recommendation tonight, if there was not going to be a piece of architecture on this logo tonight, my recommendation was going to actually be that we vote that you place a piece of architecture on there and that we would just contingency vote on that. But now that there is architecture, I think that this will go through with flying colors without us having to come back and look at it again.
I guess I meant the like alternate layouts or like this round version of it that we see here that Katie's going to change. So like, or if there's going to be a bee or if it's just going to be the artwork, is that something we have to go back, or does this committee retain, decision power on that?
I think we have to talk about that. Yeah. I think we have to figure out.
I think that that's within Kate's jurisdiction. as like the communications and marketing person.
Well, no, I mean, as far as a charter, whatever our charter says, from
Why don't you ask us tonight in the presentation and let
Okay.
us kind of decide
Okay.
if we're
That's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, sounds good. I don't know how we do it without showing something literal because, there could be committee members who are wondering, have those questions of like, well, we can't shrink this down and use it on our Facebook profile image or, how is this going to work? So like to sort of give them a sense of where things are headed without it being the
Well, so
final design.
yeah, I have a quick like question or proposal for this one is that, right now we're looking at like a B design and this circle design as sort of the alternate. Um, I happen to like the circle design, and maybe there's something we could do. Like the fence just doesn't seem to merge. I liked the fence before, but now that it doesn't appear on the original logo, it's not quite right.
There is a
So
stone
like,
wall on the top of the
what's everybody's take right now, right? Like, how does everybody feel about the B design versus the circle design, right? If the circle design is like, we haven't all just said how we feel about it. If we like the B design or if the circle design, then let's just say we're going to make a version of this for later on. Or if we prefer the B design, then we just say we're going to make a version of this later on.
I'm
But
not,
like,
I'm not there yet. I don't like any of them.
you don't like either of these?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're not, I mean, some elements of it, yes, and the concept of it, yes, but that they're just not, we'd made the tweaks on the logo and then all of a sudden, yeah, it's way better than it was. This, I feel like, we need to take elements of what we've decided on, our final decision for the logo to be part of this. You know what I mean? I don't think we're reinventing the wheel for a round. Am I wrong? Katie?
I actually love the bee with the gazebo. And if
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. I'm just.
And these are older, I think what Nate's
Yeah,
saying too.
I mean, I guess
we've added trees, we've added a barn, so
like there's no more fence. That there's
yeah.
Well,
Right.
I mean, we could say that because there are so many new pictorial elements in the logo, there are two trees, there's a barn, there's a tractor, there's a weather vane, there's crop lines, there's a hill, there's a reservoir, and a gazebo. It will be more difficult to reduce that pictorial landscape down to a more simplified icon, like the one that Katie has in the right. The circle that we're looking at now was from a version that had just those crop lines and the water and the gazebo. So
Yeah.
could say that because there are so many pictorial elements, it's going to be difficult to whittle that down. And we do want to opt for a B with the color images and more of the abstracted elements so that we're still getting a sense of the logo, but we're not going to be able to represent all of the icons that are in the larger logo version in a small circle. And
Yeah,
Katie, you had a version of multiple Bs with multiple different styles in a previous one.
Let me pull that up.
I mean, for branding purposes alone, I think it should be the bee that's actually in the logo.
Yeah,
I agree.
and that is the bee.
I feel like all of these elements need to be what are actually what's in the in the logo without having variation. Because that's what we have with the town seal right now. Is there's 7 or 8 different artistic impressions of what that is, and so and Ed, I see you there. You haven't said anything at all. I think you're the only member that hasn't. Do you have any thoughts?
I'm actually busy at the moment in Photoshop. I'm playing with something.
No. Okay.
Can I ask a question, Katie? The bee. Is it possible to just take the bee and stick it right in the middle of that circular logo, like in between the green and the blue?
Like here?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's an idea.
I think we're still running into different content, but I'll show you real quick.
Okay.
Shit.
And I think if we pull the fence out, extend the field up, right, so that you get that farm. The field is still farms, right? Agriculture. You got the gazebo. You have the water for the quabbin. The trees. I think that's an element that I think we could just drop for the lower version, and then yeah, the bee looks pretty nice in there.
I'm thinking the dark blue on the bee
Yeah.
to make it pop.
I agree with that.
think the B alone is nice in some contexts, but if we want sort of one version of the stamp, which would be ideal for managing this thing, then it would be duplicative to have like the B and then just have the name Belchertown written next to it again in the same font. Like it's just not really adding anything. So
Yeah.
something like
Keep in
this.
mind, I have not played with this yet since we so like I could kind of, but I think our number
We had
one
a
I mean,
script
question,
do we need this for today? I guess
Right.
that's the bottom line. We're getting into a creative discussion here, which is great.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
just
and I
thinking
wanna
like,
show you something
we've
better
got
than
like
this.
four of us agreeing on this.
Well,
I
I
think
mean,
it's nice
okay,
that we
what is
all
it?
actually agreed upon a logo. You know what I
No,
mean?
but
We're talking
all right.
about something else now.
So for tonight,
Yeah.
okay, to clarify and to streamline what we're doing, so we need to have a presentation for the select board with this as the logo design,
I think that
as the
is
final, contingent upon the Katie's tweaks. This is what we're moving forward with.
And we would just voice over like, and this is, the color palette would be inspired and we're going to have different layouts and, it's going to work in different formats and not show more.
So this is an actual PowerPoint presentation. This is a Zoom presentation. What kind of presentation is this going to be?
Katie and I will be there. Oh, Katie, go ahead.
No, you go.
Katie and I will be zooming in and we'll be showing this final logo. We'll be showing excerpts from the research document and basically a version of the one-sheeter that was shared for the voting to identify just so. And we're aiming for no more than 5 minutes where we share this image, walk through the logic behind the design, a recap of the process that got us to this point. And if this committee votes, we'll share the vote of this committee to put this logo forward. And all the support that we basically.
I feel like a committee member should at least introduce you and have a segue into that, just for formality's sake.
So
I cannot be there.
So if you want me to do that, I can do that.
And I think Molly, someone else had also volunteered to be there.
I'm going to be there.
In person or on Zoom.
Yeah, I'll be there in person. If you want.
I don't know that we can have a quorum there. I think I don't know how.
Why would it matter whether or not we have a quorum as long as we don't discuss it?
I heard that
you didn't post for it. You have to. So I noticed that there's no agenda posted for branding committee being at the select board meeting. That doesn't mean that multiples of you can't be there, but you have to be very careful about who speaks. Right. And if somebody speaks, they really need to be speaking as if they're a resident instead of a committee member.
Okay, so are we all supposed to be there tonight? I'm just curious.
So we can all be there, but we should not sit together in a group, right? Like try not to like two people at most, because if you have this appearance of a quorum sitting together, then that could break rules.
Right, because we don't have an agenda posted.
Right. And if anybody and basically like 1 or 2 people could speak, or I think for us we're 7, so 3 people could speak to the project, but that's it. Nobody else should be standing up to talk about the project, because again, that's having more than quorum discussing the issue.
Are we required to be there as voting members?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I would love to discuss the logistics of tonight's presentation a little bit more. Before we do so, I would love to recommend that as we wind down our time, we vote on the logo if we need to, so that we can have that signed, sealed, and delivered.
Okay. The only person that hasn't voiced anything today is Ed. And before we get there, Ed, do you have anything to add before we propose anything here? I put you on the spot, but I
know.
I'm really we've got to kind of gather everything here, and
I certainly think we've moved a step in the right direction. I just wish we had more time.
Well, sometimes you just kind of gotta run with the bulls,
No.
so to speak.
I just think that anything we put forward should be our absolute best that we can get out. I think we can do better than this. But as I said, I'm sitting here playing with something in Photoshop, and we'll see if
Well,
I can get it done in the next few minutes.
well, we're gonna have to. We've got a few, 14 minutes before people have to leave. So I mean,
Yeah, I get that. I get
so,
that.
I don't
So-
know.
Is it, are you producing like a stark difference to all of this, or is it just like a minor tweak or something? Like,
I'm trying to take a photograph of the common, an older photograph that includes the cannon, the monument, and the gazebo. And I'm trying to put it into something that would very quickly let itself be dropped onto this design we have right here, but I'm not getting it to the point where it's ready to be dropped in. But it would even further, as I said, it would further, make it distinctive as being very clearly Belchertown. Because while the gazebo is a big improvement, it's still a little bit generic.
I
Well,
wouldn't really call it generic. I would call it simplistic.
it is simple.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the suggestion is to add the cannon. That's
no,
what
No, I said the cannon and the monument.
that's gonna be so busy.
Yeah, that's
Well,
gonna
as
be
I said, that's why I haven't even given it to you yet, because I
All right.
haven't gotten it to where I think it would work.
All right. Well,
So here's one thing I'd like to just toss out there. As I read the emails and talked to different people, I understand their concerns that they may not necessarily see this as Belchertown, which is why we have the word Belchertown, which kept coming up over and over again when I was talking to people about the logos. And I'm just going to remind everybody, like I did them, the Apple computer was called Apple Computer, and it was an apple with a bite in it. That how anybody ever thought that that was a good idea for a computer is completely beyond me. But over time, when the branding is done right, and the town will get used to this, I think they're going to like this logo just as they love the town seal. And my guess is when they did the town seal, they probably had people who didn't like the town seal for a whole bunch of reasons. So I think this, because of the votes, and I do think that was a huge number of votes. I mean, I'm impressed with the number of votes. But I actually think as soon as that thing went over there, the common,
the
the
gazebo.
gazebo, as soon as that went over there, you could see Belchertown.
And I'll add, and I know you had sent me all those photos, and I dragged them in and I traced the cannon and I traced the stone wall that was holding the cannon, and it's too busy and small. Like look at what we're running into with the weather vane. You're not
Well,
even
which
tell
is
that's
why I
real.
haven't put anything forth yet, because I know what it needs to look like to get it on there, and I haven't gotten there yet.
We
Yeah, I
don't
think
have
the
the
thing
time
is,
for this.
we
We have
have
10
about
minutes. We've
11
got to
minutes
vote.
left to the meeting for the vote. And I'm definitely have to be off at 1 o'clock. And, if this is something that was maybe done prior to.
Yeah, we've had months to
Yeah.
And I've stated right along that I didn't think as we were that it was appropriate. I mean, so literally at the last moment, we've come up with something that's a hell of a lot closer and a big improvement.
Yeah.
and frankly, that takes the advice and the recommendations of the constituents that participated in the town survey and the open house and the voting process.
Yeah, so
It
we should
does.
probably
It does capture.
go for a vote. Nate?
I'm going to ask now that all the committee members have kind of spoken. One thing that's really important to me, and as a member of this committee, and as the first committee I've ever been involved in, and I thank you for all that. I think it's important to feel good about what we've worked on here. And it was, I was reminded of that in all the, when Katie put forth all the revisions that you see, and how many times we've talked about this, and how many times, at some point, you just got to take a step and say, here we go, and this is the direction we're going. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, everybody's got an opinion. There's been so many opportunities to talk about this, but at the end of the day, I think we're ready to ask for a motion to vote on this as the final design that we will put forth to the select board. So, is there a motion?
Motion approved.
No. I need to have a motion.
You can't approve a motion.
Oh, got a motion to move forward.
I need to have a motion first. So I need someone to cite a motion.
I motion that we vote as a committee to approve the logo as shown on our screen right now to the select board this evening, May 19th, 2025.
A second.
Okay, I'll call a vote on Kate's motion.
Molly
Yes.
Robinson, aye.
Maureen McGarrett Hall, aye.
Lisa Ducharme, aye.
Chris Martin, aye.
Kate Nato, aye.
Is that everybody except for me?
Ed didn't vote either.
No, I didn't vote. And I'm not going to vote. I abstain. Ed Knight abstains.
And Nate Shattuck, aye. So voted.
Congratulations, committee.
So
Wow.
the one thing that we didn't discuss as to, and I'm not sure if we need a motion, or I'm not sure if we need, but about the round logos, or the round, I don't know what you call them. Do you still call it a logo? The other ancillary parts of this that we're not going to present tonight. What's the direction on that?
We are going to present this logo.
Yep.
And get hopefully approval on it, with the contingency that this is the logo that is used to build out the full visual identity toolkit. And we're going to ask the select board tonight if they need to vote on the rest of the visual identity toolkit, which will include small graphics for social media, other colorways of this, etc. So that was the guidance from Nicole. We'll ask that.
So that we have, the logo toolbox as stated by the committee. So it's clear as to, so there's not 18 different variations and versions and stuff like that. So
exactly.
Okay. I don't think we need a motion for that. I just think we need to understand that that is the direction of where we're going after this evening. Now, moving forward for this evening, so you're going to have a presentation, and Kate or Molly, who is going to do that?
Katie and Maud and I are meeting to finalize the content that we're sharing today and the order of speaking, etc. If there are if there is one or two committee members who would like to either join us to discuss that later as a non-official committee where we're just finalizing our presentation, I feel
like a committee member needs to introduce you guys to the select board and say, we've voted on this, and here's the layout as we discussed from the committee. If am I correct in that, guys? I think
that's absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The committee was charged with this. The committee needs to at least open the presentation of this.
Okay, so Kate volunteered to do that. Right?
Yeah, I would say either Nate, you as chair, Kate as communications manager, or me as.
I can't be there.
You can't be there. Yeah.
I can't be there.
So Kate.
I think Kate. Yeah.
It'd be great to have, and also don't want to take up time later if everyone is wearing many hats and busy to convene, but it would be great to have the introduction, and it would be great to have a committee member share, if they're comfortable, a little bit of the timeline and the process of how this came together. And if not, then that's something that I can do, and then hand it to Katie to talk about the design and Maud to talk about what comes next.
What time are you guys getting together to discuss the format for this evening?
We had 4 on the calendar, but we can be flexible for you, Kate, if there's a time that actually does work for you.
I can do 4 if we wrap up soon. Otherwise, I can do 6.
Okay, I'll add you to the invite.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. So Kate is going to present. Molly, do you want to be part of that process too, or are you? No? Okay.
I'm happy to just attend, and
Okay.
if questions come up, I can jump in, but sounds like I should just be quiet.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I can't be
and
there.
If you'd like to join at 4, Molly, you're welcome, but I also know that you might be busy, so.
I probably won't join at 4.
Okay. Well, then we welcome you to chime in this evening with whatever you'd like to share.
Okay, thanks.
And Chris and whoever else is going to be there.
Okay.
I could jump in at 4 and listen just to have a second just as a backup.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we just have to make sure that it's just less than quorum.
Yep.
It is. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
So Molly asked a good question in the chat. Are we going to keep our Wednesday meeting to finalize the symbol?
So I know the Wednesday meeting was to, in case the select board said no, was the original idea for that meeting.
Okay, so would we just go back to a different schedule where we meet on Wednesdays?
We could leave that Wednesday on the book, and then if we don't need it, it can always get canceled afterwards.
Yeah, we could choose Wednesday morning not to meet.
I think
can I ask a question about that symbol? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Can I ask a question about that symbol to Maud? Maud, do you envision that symbol on our wayfinding signs, or do you envision the entire logo, or just the colors and overall tone of it?
Yeah, so it's really tricky because they haven't begun yet, and I'm not the designer. Any one of those is possible. It really depends on there's the content that goes on a particular sign given its location and how much content in words there need to be. And then if that is like the full horizontal logo is the best fit there, or if so there's a lot of variables at play with how they'll go about incorporating the logo.
Okay, and the reason that I asked that question is I'm wondering if, because that meeting is on the 21st, Stantec's deadline is the 21st, right? I'm just wondering if
it's the end of
31st?
June. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I
So
would
keeping that meeting on
recommend-
Wednesday is not necessarily required then.
All right, everybody, I apologize. I do have to leave the meeting. We are good with the vote, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would recommend us trying to get that to Stantec ASAP. I don't think it's a crazy rush, but I could see them using that quite often on the signage if they use something. Just because that's why we're doing it as a versatile.
Chris, what does the agenda say for Wednesday?
Great question.
I mean, we kind of have to stick to that if it's already on the books for that.
Believe I kept it very vague, just in case.
Well, that's kind of what we need to know.
Yeah. Sorry, pulling it up right now. May 21st, PDF.
Just to see whether we can talk about that or not.
And Katie confirmed that we will be able to look at some circle icons on Wednesday now that we have this logo set. So if the agenda permits and schedule permits, I think it would be great if we could get clarity on those logos on Wednesday. So at the very least, once we hear from select board tonight, we either have to send it back to them and figure out if they need to approve that batch, or if they say that they approve a visual identity kit based on this brand and we can just move forward with it, then it just gives us some time to do that.
And can I ask one thing? And Katie, can you share with all of us what we've kind of voted on? Just email it to us. So
of like, would it be helpful?
just for us.
Whatever, maybe Danielle, Maud, and I, and Kate, and what comes from our meeting, that kind of final.
Yeah, or just the, I mean, we voted on that drawing, just to, as,
just send that.
I just kind of wanted, because when we turn the computers off now and it's like, okay, well, what did that really look like?
Yep, I will do that right now.
Wanted to be able to say, yeah, okay, this is what we talked about. And so I feel pretty good about that. And Chris, I know, what'd you find? Anything?
It's super big, so it's just discussing branding project updates. So we
should
can
we
talk
do
about
that?
anything.
Should we talk about those round ones on Wednesday? Yeah, and then maybe do some minutes and stuff like that. Yep. We can go over the minutes and everything like that so that we're up to speed on that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other updates or anything we have to talk about at this point? No. Okay. Well, so we figured out a direction for this, the logo. What's next for the seal?
I believe we are still waiting for some feedback from Terry. So we have not been aggressively following up because there have been a lot of other to-dos with this logo. So I think the goal will be to make it through this evening, get
I got you.
icons on Wednesday, and then try to resume. We do not have clarity from Terry on what is essential to remain on the seal and what level of detail is essential to remain on the seal.
I know she was working on getting an easier.
Yes.
I talked with her directly about finding an easier way to get that stamp to Katie so that it might be, so that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. But okay, so and I can try to visit with her or something between now and Wednesday maybe. But there's a lot going on in town, so I mean, I hate to try to throw it in there when there's so much going on. So
she is not going to be available for the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I understand that.
I think it might be not Wednesday, but our next meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Where we come back to seal.
And then so we have so is there anything else to come before us today that I don't know about?
I've got to run though.
Okay, yeah, I do too. Is there any public comment at this point? Anybody here on the meeting would like to say anything? We had some letters to the committee that were shared. One from Mr. Gibbons and one from. What's that? Oh, he had to leave. Okay, and the other from. I don't. Do they need to be read, Nicole, or they just understood that there were 2 letters sent to the committee and that everybody received them?
I don't think they don't need to be read. We don't read all of our incoming mail on select board.
But they do need to be added to the record.
Okay, that's fine. And then we have our meeting set for Wednesday, so we can figure out, so we're good to go there. At this point, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 1:04 p.m.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
We have a second?
Second. Molly Robinson seconds.
Okay, so Kate and Molly, and I'll call a vote to adjourn the meeting at this time.
Ed Knight, aye.
Molly Robinson, aye.
Lisa Ducharme, aye.
Kate Nato, aye.
Nate Shattuck, aye. Thank you all.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Take care.